Hey everyone, Richard Gibbens here, CEO of Bluegrass Realtors and Imagine MLS, and this is part of a video series where we're explaining some of the changes that are happening in the fourth quarter of 2025. And in this one, I want to talk about why RESO, like why are we having all these field changes happening? So first off, let me start by explaining what RESO is. RESO stands for Real Estate Standards Organization, and their goal is to try to standardize the fields across the industry. So for example, something like a back porch, depending on where you are, could be called a veranda or called a lanai or a sitting porch or a deck. You know, there's lots of different things that somebody might call a part of a real estate transaction. And this makes it really difficult for a lot of vendors across the industry that are trying to aggregate all this data from different places and just kind of standardize it and make it easier to do. So what the Real Estate Standards Organization does is very similar to NAR or the Kentucky Realtors, or even here at Bluegrass. They have committees of people, of stakeholders from across the industry who get together and try to agree on what fields should be called. So there's been about 15 years of work put into this. Being a RESO standard is actually mandated by NAR. NAR is the one who started this organization, and you do have to at least map your data to that. Now, we're actually going a step further, and we're doing what's called RESO native, which means that our data, all the way at the database level, at the point that you put it in, is going to match the RESO standard. Now, what does that do for us? It drastically reduces development cost of what it takes to map data to an MLS. So I don't know if anybody's hired a developer recently, but they're making something like $200K straight out of college, no experience, and they're very, very, very expensive. And the more work that somebody has to do in order to make your data work for their product, the harder it is to bring online. And we are moving into a world where we're going to be offering a lot more products where, you know, rather than us picking or choosing a particular product, we're just going to offer multiple of them. And then you, as the broker or agent, is going to be able to choose which one's right for you. And in order to do that, we need to reduce our development costs. So this moving this data over to the RESO standards is going to make our data easier to work with, which is going to reduce our development costs, which is going to make it where we can bring on more of these vendors to help you serve your clients as best you can. Another part of this to talk about is another important part of the data being standardized is that your data will always show up correctly on other websites. So there's a lot of different websites across the internet that we syndicate our data to, and it's literally impossible for all of them to contact every MLS that they work with to ask exactly what we call a specific field or what we mean by something. So a lot of times these websites or developers are making guesses based on what we're providing, and sometimes they're wrong. So by standardizing this data, we're also ensuring the highest level of quality on all websites across the entire internet. One final note to make sure we talk about with RESO is that you still get custom flavor, or local flavor. So, for example, the rule is that if you do it and RESO does it, you have to do it RESO's way. But if you do it and RESO doesn't, then you have a lot more free reign. So there's a lot of places where we have things that are custom fields, that are local, that are important to us, that we're able to keep that, and we don't have to change it to RESO. A good example of this is like in our farm property type, we have things like number of horse barns, number of tobacco barns, number of paddocks. Those are things that wouldn't really be very useful to the majority of the country, so RESO doesn't have a rule on that. But because it's important to us in our local area, we're able to keep that as a custom field. So it's not like we're taking everything and like shoving it into this box that doesn't fit. We just have to align with things that we use that everybody else uses. So don't be afraid. You know, we're not going to lose that local flavor. You know, the keeping the realtor at the center of the transaction and making sure that a locally knowledgeable realtor is at the center of every transaction is always a goal of ours, and something that we consistently work on to make sure that you're able to display that local knowledge and really give that to your clients. So as part of these communications that are going out, we have provided you with the full list of all the fields that are changing. We're going to have another video that kind of talks about some of the high level, some of the ones that you're really going to get excited about, because there's some really good changes coming out of this as well. But take a look at this spreadsheet and you can see every single field that's going to be changing. And then also know that within the system itself, we're doing a lot of work with different help text and things like the guide me's and ways to kind of help you navigate this and know what things used to be called, what they're called now. So we're doing a lot of work on that, and we're going to help you through that as everything launches in this fourth quarter. So don't worry too much, but we do want to get this information out to you as soon as possible. As always, we are here to help. We're here to answer any questions you have. Even if you're going through and you have specific questions about why a field changed, we've taken some pretty detailed notes on our end about like why decisions were made. So we can certainly answer those questions and help you through any of those concerns that you have. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.